I have an announcement. I don't know whether or not you'll be excited by this news, but we're going to continue with international relations. No? You're not excited? Come on, it's going to be fun. Just a few more segments and then we'll do something else. I don't know what else yet. Actually, probably a few more segments and then we're going to take a break because I'm going to be flying to America for a conference and heaven only knows what my internet will be like. Okay, anyway, so today I'm Rebecca Farnum, this is Relations with Rebecca, and we're going to talk about feminism in international relations. As soon as I cough, excuse me. Feminist international relations theory is about bringing questions of gender and power into the academic study of international relations and politics. It's looking at, of course, the roles that women play in international politics, around NGOs, women heads of state, in Congress, the role of women in the economy, female soldiers, blah, 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 but also, and equally important in actual academic feminist study, is the role of masculinities and LGBTQ concerns and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of line on like masculinities, a good lit on how we make war less emotional and where that comes from and the kinds of gendering that happens in discourse and in the academic study itself. So feminist international relations theory is not just looking at the gender of people who are influenced by and influencing international relations, but also about how the study of international relations itself is gendered. So things like that academic relations as an academic subject has generally looked at the macro, at war, at security in very man-centric ways, and ignores a lot of the micro and the local, and the little nuances between people and that kind of thing. That's gendered in a lot of ways. Studying gender is less about actually, you're men, you're women, how are you different, how are you similar, and more about figuring out power dynamics, and that's often never around only gendered lines, right? So there's also a lot of race, nationality, ethnicity, religion, etc. issues going on, and also, tensions between micro and macro, local and global, state and citizen, that kind of thing. And this includes not just like between people, but then also like certain issues within an academic field. If war has historically had dominance, if international relations privileges states above small NGOs, those kind of things are all around and questions of feminist international relations as well, in that they're trying to question power dynamics and inequalities of power. Feminist international relations really kind of took off from the 1980s onward, particularly around the fall of the Cold War. There's a lot going on academically as far as post-structuralist and postmodern, and critical feminist international relations definitely kind of falls into one of those camps. It's getting at problematizing the discipline itself. So not just, questioning how are international relations gendered, but also how is our study gendered and what do we need to do to figure out that, and how are we creating and defining knowledge, that kind of thing. But there are also movements that are a bit more mainstream, a bit less postmodern and, crazy questioning of knowledge and belief in, the foundations of society. So there are movements along more mainstream scholarly lines, or in more traditional bodies, so like the World Bank, the United Nations, that are seeking to include women, pay more attention to women's issues and women's rights. And these are kind of more in line with the equal opportunity for women lines of thought in feminism. Somewhat less radical in some ways, but of course just as important, and potentially just as influential in world politics as a whole. So that's feminist international relations, looking briefly. Really just kind of questioning, seeing we have all of these, and it's, I should say, feminist international relations theory is in some ways less of a theory and more of a critical lens, of course, right? Some of the theories that we presented last week were very much like ways of looking at the world, and I would say feminism is one of those, right? And like the influence that we need to always be paying attention to questions of power. That's very much a way of looking at the world. It's also definitely can be seen kind of as a methodology, right? Especially if you're getting to the really critical feminist piece, where we're deconstructing everything.